All right, YouTube says we're live. Go ahead.
Okay, I'll call to order at 6:02. Okay, I'm going to turn it over to Bob because I don't know the new members to introduce.
Okay, so a couple of things. We have from the school committee, Mike Pacillo, who is representing the school committee side from Exeter. And is it Andrea or Andrea? How do you want to say it?
Andrea is good. Thanks.
Okay, Andrea, from West Greenwich, and she's on the school committee side. In as a housekeeping measure, John Rizzo is good enough to be on the on this meeting, but he informed me that he'll be resigning from the building committee due to other commitments. And I just personally want to thank John. He's been a great guy and a great supporter, good person. So it's thanks, John.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry to hear that, John.
Is Mike on the call?
Was.
Mike Pacillo, he's on my screen. He's in the lower left.
He's identified as Renee.
Yeah.
Oh, that's why. Okay, well, nice to meet you, Mike and Andrea. Okay, so Bob, I know you sent out a couple emails, but I don't think they went to the group on updating current project status.
Yeah. The for the capital projects that we were doing in the district with the existing MOA, they're complete. The Wawaloom boiler is done, and Steve Bailey could talk more about that. And the security at Metcalf is done, and that is complete. In that both those projects went really well. So that effectively ends projects we have in hand, and we're really pivoting towards the bond projects. So I don't know if anybody has any questions about the Wawaloom boiler.
The boiler went very well. We had, typical glitches at the beginning, but they came right out immediately and took care of them. And it's been running absolutely perfect. I should knock on wood for the last 3 weeks. It's been perfect. So very nice installation, very clean, very professional guys. Did a very good job.
Great, sounds good. How about Metcalf? I haven't been in the school. How did that project come out aesthetically? Does it look good?
I think it looks better than I thought it was going to look, actually.
Good.
All right. All right, what's next? Milestones. So what's going on with the enabling legislation, Bob? You want to skip that one?
So it's as I was saying to some colleagues today, it's every time you think you have it, you lift up a new rock and you find something different. And so one of the things that the building committee needs to know, I did not know this, maybe I should have known this, I don't know. But from the moment the legislation is enacted, so that's up at the General Assembly, from the moment it's enacted, you have to let the Board of Canvassers know, because they need their time, which is generally around 10 days, to mobilize to start to talk about what's the bond referendum going to look like, etc. Because you need 50 days from the enabling legislation until the earliest a vote can be held is 50 days. So there's this whole timing element that we start to run into regarding, are we going to have to hold a special referendum locally? And there was a period there where we were excited that, oh, well, maybe we can get on the March 2nd referendum because the state is going out they're having their special election in March. Well, we're not going to make that, obviously. And now the dilemma that we're facing I've been reaching out, but I haven't made a connection yet. So if anybody on this call knows somebody and can get some insight, that would be great. But when is the legislature, when is the legislator going to come into session and enact, do the enacting on all these projects that are out there? It's not a commitment to bond. It's not a bond project or anything like that. It's just acting on the enabling legislation. I've been told it's kind of pro forma, that generally they just approve it. The issue is when are they going to be in session? And I haven't, what I do know is they weren't meeting last week and they're not meeting this week, but I don't know if they're meeting next week. And with a straight face and no political, intonation at all, the person that's the rep who's moving this for us is the legislators are considering censoring him, so it's like, oh my God. So I don't know how if that means, it might mean nothing to us, but it might mean something to us. I don't know.
Okay.
Well, we could still make April if they meet by February 15th, right?
Mm-hmm.
So we got a month.
Right.
Has our rep been communicating? Like, is he still planning
he
on
was very,
submitting it,
he was
sponsoring it?
Sorry. So I went through the bond council to Representative Price. This was 2 weeks ago. We were very quick on the response. Right now, not so much. So I'm still waiting. What do you got, Lou?
They're supposed to be back in session next Tuesday.
Okay, well, that helps. Tuesday, the 19th. So I will try and I'll reach out to, my takeaway is to contact the bond council and then we'll work on the reps. Because there's I know the superintendent, when we sent out looking for someone to enact it, I think we sent it to what, Jim, like there's 6 reps and you're still muted.
We sent it to every one of them, and we
Yeah.
had a couple of responses, but Rep Price was the first one. But we did have somebody else that volunteered to push it through as well. So
Was it Sherry?
It was not Sherry. She never responded.
I think it was Justine Caldwell.
Yes.
Okay, Justine's okay.
So if we have an issue with Rep Price, then we can reach out to Rep Caldwell and see if she can take over and push it through for us.
I would suggest under the circumstances, we do that.
Yeah. All right. I'll make a note on that. And that would be the 19th. They'd be in session, Lou.
Yes.
What's involved in getting approval in May? Do we need to do anything as far as submitting stuff or?
No, we just need to, we're really at the juncture where we need to get the bond approved. I'll introduce it now. We received some correspondence from RIDE as late as today, and they're ready to go full steam ahead with the 17.8 million project, and even talking about the pay-go money that would be available to us. So in their mind, I think they're thinking it's just got to get in front of the voters and be approved. So that's really where we are.
Okay. All right, so do we want to talk about the HVAC and starting that early potentially?
Yeah, I mean, we could do that. I guess maybe one of the things that, just to tee it up as we get into the conversation, is you asked, what do we have to do next? Yeah, I think as we have this conversation, we'd be looking at a shovel in the ground July 1. That's the new fiscal year. Maybe we could start earlier if we were ready and mobilized and had the bid and everything, but it'd be July 1 for the new fiscal year. So in order to do anything to engage architectural fees and services, because we have to go pick a project. Lou, you want to handle this? How that goes?
Oh, okay. So basically, the next step with RIDE is the schematic design for stage 3. So RIDE, I'm just going to quickly kind of review. RIDE breaks down their projects into 4 phases. They call them stages. The first one is kind of investigation. Second one is where you find solutions to the problems you found during stage 1. And then stage 2 is when you do the bidding documents for the projects.
Stage 3.
I'm sorry, yes, stage 3, you would be entering that. Stage 4 is the construction of the project. There's 3 reviews that you need to go through at stage 3. Schematic design, design development, and 60% construction documents. It's up to just recently, Joe Da Silva has been the only one reviewing plans because they lost Manuel. So there's kind of a backlog, and there's also a concern on the time that it takes to get approvals for these things. So you have to factor that in. For us to be ready to start construction July 1st, you would need to authorize us to start that stage 3 process. And so there would be a risk that you would take in case the referendum didn't pass, that we would be committed to our engineers for the work that they've done. So it depends which one of the projects would depend on how much the commitment would be, and also when you give us the direction to proceed determines how much work we could get done.
Okay, there was some serious questions concerning the lead time on the HVAC the other night. Can you give us a warm and fuzzy on the lead time for the equipment, Lou?
Yeah, so that really is the most serious issue with the mechanical project, in that at best during normal times it takes 16 weeks from the time that they order the equipment to when they deliver it. Before they order the equipment, they need to submit shop drawings to us. We need to review the shop drawings, approve, and then they get to place the order. So I could think you're really looking at at least 20 weeks from when the contractor is awarded the contract and given the notice to proceed.
And none of that can happen until we do stage 3 and get approval?
That's correct.
Right.
You would need to receive the last approval at 60%. Then a couple of weeks after that, we would be able to go out to bid. And then you need 3 to 4 weeks at least for the bidding phase. And then however it takes, once we receive the bids, however long you need to review them, to meet and to award the contract.
Okay,
so it sounds like more the best case for an actual shovel is September to me.
No, we can't do it in September.
Well,
I realize that. But I'm saying timing-wise, this isn't sounding like it's lining up.
No.
Well, let me ask. I don't know that that's necessary. So let's say it's 20 weeks. if we back up from April 12th, let's say we get the vote on April 12th to go and the taxpayers say yes. We could effectively enter into contracts if we've got everything, all of our ducks in a row on April 13th, right, Bob?
Yeah, that would be the, could you clarify what you mean by that? Because I'm hearing 3 to 4 weeks for the bid.
Just
And the
bear
scope
with me,
review.
Bob. If we got the approval on the vote on the
Yep.
12th, we
Yep.
get enter into contracts on the 13th.
So the bid, I just want to be clear. So the bid would have been done and the review would have been done.
Yep,
And we're going to award on the 13th.
yep. In per penny, in per pound, right? So let's just say the 13th, we could enter into a contract because everything's done up to that point. If we could enter into a contract on the 13th, plus 20, gets us down to around, what, September 1st? For install.
Right.
I mean, May, June, July, August. August 13th, you should have the equipment if 16 is good, right? So then you've
I think
got,
it's
you've got the middle of August to the middle of September, end of October to have it installed.
No, you can't run the school if they start taking the HVAC units out. You can't run the hot water in the school for the kitchen. You can't. If there's any other problems, we can't run anything because everything runs through the whole heating system runs through all those air handlers. Everything. We had an air handler break recently, and we had no heat in the school, just from a rotted pipe. So we can't just shut it down. It doesn't work. It won't work.
You don't have any way to bypass that? Your hot
Oh,
water?
I'm sure there was 30 years ago, but you can't turn the valves. The valves have, before I got there, they were never exercised.
Well,
So-
those things would have to be replaced in all this anyway.
I know, but
No,
we can't shut them down in the interim if they start taking things apart. We tried. We couldn't shut it down. We had to do it live. We had to shut the whole system down. That's what I'm saying. The valves are so bad in some of those units, you can't shut them down.
Okay, but if you're gonna tear the units out, Steve,
Yep.
okay, so you've got, let's not think of this as a linear process. Let's think of this as multiple linear processes. If we're ready to go on the 13th of April and it's 16 weeks to get the equipment ready to put on a roof and into the system, we've got 16 weeks where we can be doing other things to get ready for this, including when school is out to when school goes back into session. I'm sure
Okay, so
water and hot water for kitchens and whatnot if we think about this in parallel paths.
I'm sure we could put alternate hot water systems into the kitchen and all that. I'm just stating that if there's a problem and it doesn't get installed, they have to do it in sections because they have to do it so we can shut down or open up the whole system. That's all I'm saying. Because you haven't been on that roof. I have. There's pipes that are going to go at any time. I mean, we've been patching them.
Well, that's my point. That's my point, Steve. I mean, this system's probably not going to make another winter.
We keep patching it, but I would rather it didn't. But I just don't want to take the chance that we get halfway through it and we have no ability to use what we have.
Well,
That's my fear.
I'm trying to make logical sense out of a 16-week
Yes.
time, and that's my first goal is to make
Okay.
logical sense. I mean, if we have approval to move on the 12th by the taxpayers, we should be able to enter into contracts on the 13th. If we back up, what's your time frame to do those drawings, Lou?
Central rooftops that are doing the kind of the center core and the admin and the cafeteria.
I guess Lou doesn't. Lou.
No, I think he's got Will Meyer on the phone, the
Hold on,
EDS
okay.
guy.
All right, okay, so I wasn't aware that we were gonna get into the details of the mechanical system, or else I would have invited our engineer to participate in the Zoom meeting. but I have him on the line. He can hear us and he can speak. Let me just briefly tell him that we're talking about doing the high school rooftop unit replacement, the mechanical project at the high school, which was submitted in stage 2. They're talking about having us start work prior to getting voter approval. Voter approval would happen in April, on April 12th. So we would expect maybe to get a go-ahead to a contractor on April 13th. So not addressing everything that needs to happen before that, but starting after that, I gave them a rough idea of rooftop units having a 20-week lead time, 16 for manufacturer, but prior to that, you need to do shop drawings and approval, review, and so that's where we are. We're trying to gauge the time frame is that we're really running up against September, and the discussion has started that of course there's plenty of work that could be done prior to September. It's structural reinforcement of the roof to make sure that we accommodate for all the snow loads and our variables. They can set the curbs, they can prep the ductwork. But so that's where we are with the discussion.
Okay, yeah, so that's good. I just wanted to make sure we knew it was just a removal and a replacement of the rooftop unit work inside the building as well. And I think it's safe to assume 6 weeks. I'm sure they'll probably be able to do better than that, but right now for planning purposes, 16 is a pretty conservative estimate and should, you could probably get closer to 12 weeks, but and I can reach out and see what we're looking at for lead times on equipment as well.
Okay, so if the equipment, even if the equipment came in on the 16th, in the 16-week period, which is the worst case, let's say that's worst case, which if we authorize the go-ahead on the 13th of April, that means essentially the 15th of August, the equipment arrives. How much time is it going to take to get it on the roof if everything else is ready for it, have it hooked up and running?
Will, any guess on that?
Yeah, that's a good question for a contractor. I would say, if the curbs are all set, it's really just rigging. How long can it take? If you've got, let's say 15 rooftop units, you could probably, they're not huge rooftop units. Rigging is probably going to be a little bit tricky because of the way that the roofs are. But if they could probably rig 2 or 3 or 4 a day, I would think. And I would think you'd be able to do it in a month.
Okay, so theoretically, yeah, that was what I was thinking too. So I'm thinking we'd be ready to rock about mid-September.
So that's the rooftop units, right?
Time, if we have everything prepped ahead of time for receipt of these things. Just so you know, I've done this before with a Cushnet company.
So my question is,
Do you want to jump?
the rooftop units are put on. Are we going to be doing the inside work prior to the rooftop units, like the heating coils and all that?
Is there a Zoom connection?
Yeah, Bob, would it be possible for you to forward the email for the Zoom meeting and he can join us right in the Zoom meeting now? It sounds like we're going to get really into the weeds, so I think it's probably good for him to participate that way.
So Lou, while he's zooming in, how much time would it take if we get the school committee to commit the funds? How much time is it going to take to get all the drawings done and be ready for bidding? Let's say 2 weeks from now you get the go ahead.
Will, what do you think? Because obviously I'm consulting with him because it's mostly a mechanical project.
Well, you've basically got 2 fixed pieces. You've got you've got the 2 weeks to get the approval, and then you basically, to get the bidding together, we've got to, you got to give them like a month to bid it, right? Wouldn't you say, Louis?
Yes.
So if they need to start in mid-April, we need to be done in mid-March, and we got to get through RIDE. Do you think? I mean, we could design it in that time frame, but the RIDE and the cost estimating and all that other baloney is what takes the time.
Yes, they've become very strict now about these submittals. So what RIDE has gone through is this portal submittal where you have a checklist of everything you need to submit and include. And once you submit that, then they start reviewing it. So it takes, I would say, at least the best case, 3 weeks from submittal till you meet with RIDE to hear their response. So that has to be factored in there. I think that this type of project, they may allow us to skip the schematic design or submit the schematic design and maybe skip the design development and go back to them at 60%. This is a project that has been really well documented through the stages, so they're familiar with it. And I think that
And couldn't you lay this out to RIDE, Lou? Is it's kind of an emergency because of the timing?
I was just going to say that you folks have a really good relationship with RIDE.
Schematic is done. We submitted schematic for stage 2 as long as the scope hasn't changed.
Right. So even if the issue is when could we order the equipment? Because the lead time is in the equipment. So if given the fact that it's an emergency, couldn't we go to RIDE and say, look, this is what we got to get done first because we don't think it's going to make another 12 months. And, give us the green light as quickly as you possibly can so we can get equipment on order. And then if we have to, if there's questions about the design or whatnot, we'll tighten all that stuff up with you after the fact. Is that reasonable in this case?
I don't think it's reasonable. I think it's doable, but it is a challenge. It is going to be a challenge to get it done in that time frame.
Well, I sent you that link.
I remember doing a pre-purchase was at when we did that one in Pawtucket with the unit ventilators.
Yeah.
Right?
So okay. So what Will's talking about is you can shorten the time in the overall project if you pre-purchase the equipment. Let's say that if you were able to pre-purchase the equipment a month before, but that gives you even more of a liability because you don't have voter approval.
Right.
The other thing that is not ideal, I really don't recommend doing projects like that because what happens is that then you get finger pointing during the construction where the contractor blames the equipment manufacturer blames the contractor if there's problems. It's really tough. It's better when it's all under one umbrella and one contract.
In this case, I'm sure we couldn't pre-order the equipment. That's just not feasible. Taxpayers would never go for it.
Yeah, that's good.
That's not what I'm getting at. Yeah, RIDE is the monkey wrench in the upfront part. If it wasn't for RIDE, I would say that this project is feasible. You might be running a little, you might be pushing your luck a little bit towards the end, but I think you could get it done. The biggest hurdle I think is going to be getting RIDE to approve your designs so that we can get to bid and get that equipment on order for the 13th of April should the taxpayers say yes. And then the risk is what we owe you to design it and do all that upfront stuff.
Yes, I should say, and so typically RIDE, because of what we're going through, is concerned about COVID measures that were included in the project. So Will, could you talk a little bit about what has been included in the stage 2? Will?
I'm trying to remember offhand. I think, we've replaced all of the units with energy recovery ventilators, so the ventilation levels are excellent. We can include bipolar ionization in the Make a Bear units as well. right now I think there's just baseboard in the classroom, so there's not much you can do with that.
And we
could-
also,
and I don't think we included HEPA units or anything like that.
No, yeah, that wasn't an option. Steve, I think Steve had a question.
yeah, we have baseboard in most of the rooms. There are some electric reheats and there's a bunch of oh geez, I'm losing my train of thought. In the ceilings, there's a bunch of oh Jesus, lost my train of thought. Bunch of Bob, help me out here. What's the word?
Vents, heating coils.
Heating coils. There we go.
Survey says heating coils.
Heating coils, and there's 17 of those that are blown out.
Okay, so beyond our fees, there's also a couple of additional costs you may need to bear. RIDE is going to require a commissioning agent. They want the commissioning agent engaged at the beginning of the project so he could participate in the design commenting of it. I lost Will 1 second.
I sent him the Zoom link, so he should be able to get on.
Oh, maybe he's getting on. Okay. All right. The other thing is an OPM. I don't know where you are, Bob, with the discussions about an OPM for the project, but anything over $1.5 million requires you to have an OPM.
Yeah. Before we go down that road, so the bid, Lou, would include, it's going to be a GC and then the sub. So I'm just thinking, just because we know the names of the people, but there's going to be a GC who will do this and then hire the actual, because there's multiple components to this. I'm really concerned about the controls.
Yeah.
Portion of it.
It may be that just mechanical contractors bid on it, and in their scope of work, they need to do roof patching and structural reinforcing. I don't think that there's enough general work in the project to warrant a general contractor. So I think we may just see mechanical contractors bidding it.
Are you guys
We
familiar with
should,
MCOR?
hey, Louis, we should review the impact of the mechanical changes to the architectural, because we're putting in new ductwork in a lot of areas, so there's going to be a lot of ceiling impact and things like that.
Yep, that's
Okay.
exactly right.
That, and I just, again, that's where, that scope review, Lou, is gotta really be rigorous,
Spot on.
because with 17 coils,
Yeah.
and Will, Steve and I were debriefing on this today a little bit and talking it through, and we don't know about the existing HVAC, the heat, where the air would be carried. We didn't even include that in our discussion. We were just thinking about, with 17 heating coils, there may be an opportunity for cost savings to say we actually can eliminate some.
Some of them we can.
But then it's like, how far back do you chase the pipe?
Right. Because like I was saying earlier with valves in this building have not been exercised over the years. I've tried to do them, and it only causes us more troubles. We have to end up shutting down the system, replacing a valve. And I mean, I've only been here 5 years. So for 25 years prior to that, they weren't exercised. So
Means the packings are all dried out and you turn
right.
them.
So you're going to have, when you put in a new heating coil, you're going to have to go back further in the piping in order to get me some shutoffs in case there's a problem.
Yep.
I mean, it just makes sense to me. So this is where the scope of the project, I know it's been, and you had sent in, I can't think of his name, and he looked at all these areas, not Ralph.
Yeah, Arnold came through and did
Yeah, I
it.
knew he had a different name, Arnold, yes. And he's aware of that, so.
Yeah, but those are minor problems. That stuff's readily available.
I know,
The
it's
lead time
just
is in the
another
unit.
thing. It's just another thing that, I'm thinking of, because one, all those ceilings are gonna come down, and that's at the time we're cleaning the school for summer to get ready. And so they're gonna be in there and we're not gonna be cleaning, and then sometime we have to clean. So all these things run through my head because I'm trying to get the school open.
Yeah,
So
I
that makes
get it.
me, a little antsy.
I get it. I understand, Steve. I understand.
know.
But sometimes you gotta stick your neck out in that chopping block.
Yeah, I'm going to weigh in on this. I mean, you guys are talking about, you're talking about equipment that, to me, it's like speaking Greek, which I don't speak, even though my last name sounds like it. But, back to Lee's original point, if it is feasible for us to lose that system anytime, it may not make another season, right? I mean, it's shot.
It's beat.
So
It's beyond its life expectancy.
at some point in time, whether by choice or by emergency, we are going to go through a process where we have to get that system back up and running. And we have a choice right now of potentially trying to get it done as much in the summer and early as possible to have the least impact, or we may be put into a position where your school is closed in the middle of the winter time, and
That's right.
we got to do something about it, which is very, very, I mean, that's a nightmare, right?
Yes, it is.
If there was an opportunity for us to make some decisions, and again, I'm just throwing it out there for discussion, but we could make some decisions that would get us ready as early as possible, even if it meant that the school building itself wouldn't be ready to open for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, whatever the case might be. Now is the time for us to have that discussion, because we've been doing distance learning on and off for a year and a half by the time, right? So it's like, we're just continuing a little bit, and then it's ready and off we go, as opposed to starting the school year, everything's back to normal, the freaking thing goes down, and we're shutting the school down for 3 months because of a heating system, as opposed to, we're doing everything we can to do as much of this work in the summer, but the job is massive.
Yeah, and find somebody who can do that work in the wintertime. You can't do that work on that roof in the wintertime. It's impossible.
I mean, I know I'm not talking about the mechanics and the project and everything, but I'm just thinking, like, what is going to be the least disruptive? And no matter when we do this project, it's not a project that can be done from start to finish in the summer months. It just can't, right? I mean, you start mid-June, you're never going to be done by September. There's a whole bunch of work that has to be done over a period of time. And if we can take advantage of the summertime, then we minimize the impact on the normal business of the school.
Yeah.
And if I knew in advance, we could make plans for, say, the junior high school kids to be housed in a different location in the district for a short period of time, high school, because it's easier for high school kids to do distance than it is junior high school kids. Like, we could start making some of those decisions if we needed to. I'm not saying it's what I want to do,
No,
but I would much rather plan for that than a complete catastrophe in the middle of the school year. And I think that's really where Lee was coming from. Like,
That's where Lee is coming from.
how do we minimize the impact, even if there is an impact? How do we minimize it? Because we can work around it. We can message early, we can do a lot of things to try to make this work. If we knew that there were some decisions that we could make right now that would allow us to take advantage of the summertime.
And if William's right, and you can have those units in 12 weeks versus 16, you've got no problems, really. You've got wiggle room.
If they can come in 12 weeks, that's great. Because I mean, I've been just buying air tanks and things like that, and they've taken me 60 days to get.
Yeah, but on a project like this, you got some serious buying power because you're buying a lot of units. This isn't.
Oh, I understand.
This isn't trying to buy something off the shelf that everybody else wants.
No, I understand. I just want to make sure it gets done. That's.
No, I get it.
Right. I don't want to have it hodgepodged and let's do this piece here, and then they got to have a plan in place where if they get to a certain point, they need to be able to turn the system on. That's just my thought.
No, I get it. And I'm sorry, I put my engineering hat on for a minute because I wanted to understand the lead time. And I've done this before. I mean, the Cushionet company, we've done tons of those things. And the key was having everything ready so that when that rooftop unit landed, you hooked it up and you turned the system on and everything, everything was going.
Yep.
And the rooftop units are your longest lead time item. Your coils are next in line, typically from my experience. And while all that stuff's on order, you're getting your ductwork ready, you're getting your zones taken care of, you're getting your piping done, everything else is, and then basically the coils come, you put those in, the rooftop units come, you drop those in place, and you're ready to go.
That sounds nice. I like that. If it works that way.
It does, but it's not without a lot of work.
Oh, I know.
Coordination. And that's where Lou and the OPM and the design guys have to be working together and make sure that the schedule is being followed to a T. You can't get halfway into the summer and then, oh, wow, the crew's all on vacation. That ain't gonna work well.
No. I've been through a couple of these roof installs on several units, and I know how they get, and somebody has to watch them.
Yep, exactly.
Will, can you talk a little bit about the controls as part of the design? And what that's gonna look like?
Will, are you still there?
You might be muted.
Or he might be checking what was in stage 2.
Do you know, Lou?
No.
Well, just
So
getting
who-
back to
who-
this, I think, just getting back to the general overall, I think the key is going to be school districts got to take a risk and get the design moving right away. That's something that the school committee and the administration have to do. And I don't think there's going to be any pushback from the towns in discussions that I've had as far as this project is concerned. It's going to be the taxpayers. And I think if you guys sell it and you can get it on the April ballot, I think it'll go. So, the rest of it's up to you, but I think it's doable.
Sooner is better, that's for sure. Like
I
you
want
said.
the enthusiasm for this to get due, never to wane until the thing starts throwing heat.
Hey, we've been through worse, Bob.
Yeah, this one,
This one's going to be tricky, but we can do it.
I just think that I think we've done some more complex projects. It's just I guess that I worry about, having been in that building, I worry about the hard ceilings, the concrete walls, the Flexicor, just those kind of things. It's like, we thought we would only have to go back 10 feet to find some good Schedule 80. We got to go back 40 feet. Well, what does that mean? That means we got to go through this wall. You know?
He was driving.
I was driving.
Oh.
I parked. I think that was what threw me off there. Yeah, so
Go.
all right, still moving. So controls, we have all new controls planned for all the new systems. They need a new head end and all that. So that's all accounted for in the documents.
That's excellent.
Will it, I'm using ATC. Will they own all of that from the rooftop units down, Lou? If it was, say it was someone like,
Yeah, ATC they do controls, they do all that stuff. So
Yep, that's who we have now.
that should be no problem. And that it's nice because they can do it. It's basically single source.
will we know from the specs for the replacement units if we need to do reinforcement, or you're probably carrying costs for?
We have carried costs. O'Day has looked at our structural engineer has looked at that, and that was included in the cost estimate. It's not so much that the units are heavier, but the initial design, the original design may have not accounted for snow drifting. And so the current snow loading needs to be looked at, but that is currently in the estimate.
Steve would like them to be able to walk underneath them.
After we were trying to shut the valve off on the one that leaked, yes, that would have been nice because we.
And then just, you know, the other, it's all stuff that goes through your head, you know, is the, what are those roofs, Steve? EPDM or EDPM or? They're the
Yeah.
rubber roof.
Yeah.
So that's just, you know, don't go up there with your cleats on.
No. Yeah, the location of the valves is horrible on the current units. They're underneath the unit. You have to slide underneath and try to turn a huge valve. And when it's hot water coming out of the pipe and it's made a puddle, it's uncomfortable.
Hi.
Hi, how you doing, Aiden?
Good. How are you?
Hi.
Good.
Hello.
You all set to eat now?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, let us. Okay, bub.
All right.
All right, love you.
Have a good rest of your meeting.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
You mentoring, Jim?
I'm sure you've been watching me. I mean, I've been cooking dinner and feeding the dog and doing dishes. I'm like,
No, we've been watching you while your video's been on.
yeah. I don't know. There's only so many hours in the day, guys.
Yeah.
I'm surprised I haven't been asked what I think the risk money-wise may be.
Bob's job.
Now, Lee, that's exactly what I said. I want the enthusiasm. It's all of our job. It's everybody's job.
The
team.
Bob, you and Jim have the hardest job.
There's no I in team.
Got to sell the school committee on sticking their necks out.
Lou, since Lee asked the question, what's the amount?
Okay, so let me tell you how it's calculated. So our contract is based on a percentage of construction cost. For this size project, it's 7.5% of construction cost. Our contract calls for schematic design through bid phase to be 80% of the fee. I don't have the exact cost estimates of what we thought this project was going to be, but I think a ballpark of 4.5 million is what I remember. So if you take the 4.5 million times 7.5% fee times 80% through bid phase, because we don't do construction administration unless it goes forward, that's $270,000. Now, please don't hold me to this. Ballpark figure, I think a commissioning agent for this may be 70,000 and an OPM may be 80,000. So typically I'm giving a 1.5% for commissioning agent and OPM 2%. You might get better prices on that if you go out, if they get the whole project.
But that's
So 400 to 500,000.
by the project when we get the money.
Say that again, please.
Those monies will be reimbursed by the the bond.
All of it will be.
It's just the upfront cost. You got to take the risk until you have the vote of yes.
Right. Exactly.
Well,
And Bob, under worst case scenario, would those monies be reimbursable, even if it's the 60% that we get?
Yeah, 60 would be the minimum, but I'm thinking we're going to do.
No, I mean, if we didn't get voter approval.
Oh,
Ooh,
I want to stay optimistic. I'm just,
Yeah.
but
really?
Yeah, I
let's
don't.
suppose we took the risk, we
Yeah.
did it, we didn't get approval, we can't move forward, which is, we're going to be moving forward at some point because
you're going to have to move forward at some point anyway.
So, but is the risk really the figures that Lou was saying, or is the risk 40% of those figures, because at a minimum, we would put in for reimbursement for the costs under capital, or is that not, are those fees not reimbursed?
That would be, everybody would be in a hard spot, because I don't think RIDE's first response would be no.
Okay.
And then we'd have to work from there. We'd have to wrangle this project to happening and to get the forgiveness on that, or try and get some sort of reimbursement on it.
Okay.
Yeah, I think it's true. You're gonna need to do this sooner or later. You're gonna have to do this project. Whenever you do this project, you will get reimbursed for the design.
Right. That's what I'm feeling, Jim. It's like they would hold it in abeyance until we did it.
Yeah.
So the long-term impact, the long-term risk, because we know that at one time or another, this project has to get done.
This has to
Whether
happen.
it's through emergency or through, like, we're doing this ahead of time because we know it's gonna bust. At some point in time, we're gonna get reimbursement. At a minimum, it's 60%. So if you throw us a figure of 500,000, then 60% of 500,000 is $300,000 in reimbursement at some point, which means the risk is 2. The maximum risk is 2, right? Is my math wrong?
No,
You're
it's right. It's just, I don't know the when. That's the issue.
Yeah, I got that.
But I mean, we've got a stage 2 approval. I mean, the rest of the stuff is pro forma from the legislative side, and it's really got to come down to getting the community to support this. And it's got to happen.
You got to sell it. You got to sell it so you get yes. That's what you got to do.
Yeah, it's got to happen. I mean, and if I would, again, just editorializing a little bit, we are running up against the time frame for some of those 5% bonuses. I mean, like, we've got to execute.
Right, exactly. So I personally, I think you got to get the school committee to give you the green light. You got to spend the money. You got to get Lou turned on as quickly as possible and Bill turned on as quickly as possible. I mean, I'm not in that authority anymore, so I can't tell you what the school committee is going to do. But from my discussions with West Greenwich, there's not going to be any pushback from West Greenwich. I doubt there'll be pushback from the town of Exeter. Then you've got to sell the taxpayers. And the easiest way to sell the taxpayers is get it on the ballot in April, because you can sell them once on the whole thing. And the turnout in April is generally pro-school, so.
So how much do you need from the school committee?
We would need to free up, $500,000 to get things going for the fees and services.
Okay, thank you.
And to be clear, that's money that sits in the capital fund
Right.
right now. We're not asking for money that doesn't exist. That would be like a supplemental bill to either of the towns. It would just be assigning money from the capital fund to this project.
Right.
Is there $500,000 in the capital fund now?
Mhm. Well, we could get it through school committee action. There's reserves available to move it there.
And we'll, like, before we brought it to the school committee, we'll do that exercise, Bob, that we always do.
Yeah.
So we can show everybody where all the funds lie and what the exact
Right.
commitment or allocation would be in order to make it happen. It's
There may
not
be
our money that would be charged to the towns.
Yeah. I think, John, did you have a question, John? I saw you chatting, or were you good? He's muted. Can't hear you.
All right, Bubby. Did you fish?
John, you're muted somehow.
John, we can't hear you, Mike, even though you're unmuted.
Try smoke signals, John.
No, still can't hear you. Do you have the
Bill,
right
can you
device
go-
selected in Zoom for a microphone?
John, you want to call me?
Yeah, I can give you a call, Lee.
Oh, I can hear you
Nope.
now.
Oh,
I
now
think
it's
you just
working.
gotta raise your volume a little bit, your mic.
Is that any better or no?
Yeah, it's better.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
I was just wondering, is there any way the school committee could approve this prior to? I mean, if it has to be done, and then you're basically selling it to the people, like you're either gonna pay 60% or the whole thing because it has to get done.
Yeah. That would definitely be part of the selling point. And I really think, as we debate this, I think there'll be opportunity. I think I know there's money available to mobilize and get going. It is a bit of a leap of faith, because the bond hasn't happened, but I just can't see. We've whittled this thing down to the core, in, like people are saying, this is going to happen whether we want it to or not, because that system is going to fail.
Yep.
There's another little part of this too, the cost of not doing it. Steve probably throws, I could pull the numbers, but he's probably throwing between $3,000 to $6,000 annually at that system,
Well, probably more than that.
just in repair.
No, I spent more than that.
Yeah, I'm being a little conservative.
Conservative. Again.
Yeah, and you guys' time too, because they could be doing other things versus fighting that one.
Yep. We spent $4,000.
We all seem to be pretty much on the same page. You want to try and move it along? Did you say something, Bob?
Bob, you muted. There you go.
So the next school committee meeting is the 26th, so it would be a request to, make the transfer to the capital reserve account to move forward with the stage 3 design for the HVAC.
One thing you might want to do, Bob, in the meantime, is talk to RIDE and see what kind of emergency approval you can get on the designs to help speed that process for Lou, since you have a good relationship with those folks up there.
Yeah.
Because
Okay.
as soon as you're in the best position you can be in, if you are prepared to execute contracts on the 13th, essentially, of April.
Yeah.
Hmm.
Good.
Should I make a motion to try to recommend 500,000 for this project on the 26th? Would that help this?
Yeah, we'd probably formalize it.
Do we want to vote just to say, pending school committee approval, go ahead with this?
Yeah, that's item 4 on the agenda, or 3. What is that, 4? Vote on the first.
Well, I guess it's.
4
I
and
guess that's 4. I was more
5.
talking about 5. I didn't read 4.
Yep. So if we could have 4 and 5 as motions, and we could just do it.
All right. Is there a motion for that?
There's a motion for 500,000.
So just to be clear, there's a motion to vote on prioritizing the HVAC project and to approve the stage 3 fees for Toronto, pending school committee approval.
Could you add
Is
to
there a
that?
second?
Could you add to
Sure.
that, to go out for RFP for commissioning and OPM services?
Yeah, you need to do that.
Do you want to amend that, Mike?
I'll amend it to what Lou said.
So,
Remember what he
Okay.
said.
Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Okay. All those in favor?
Aye.
Are
Aye.
there any nays? Okay, motion passes unanimously.
So I'm just gonna go back just to restate. So the motion is to approve uh,
So the motion was to prioritize the HVAC project first and to approve stage 3 fees for Toronto, as well as the commissioning agent and the OPM, pending school committee approval.
Yeah,
that
and
was-
to go out to bid for the commissioning agent and the,
So 4 and
Okay.
5, 4 and 5 were done in one motion.
Yes, with an option for the OPM and the commissioning agent added.
So on to item 6. I talked with Ride. I reached out to Ride regarding the OPM if we were trying to do that in-house. They like the idea because they know it's a lower cost alternative, but there is a cost. And the way that they're allowing that to happen is if a district, you actually have to post the job and hire a qualified person to do the job. So in some instances, it is typically the facilities person, and they maintain their job during the day, and then it is the posting is to clearly delineate that the OPM activity is separate and beyond their normal tasks and responsibilities. That's the demarcation where they'll allow that to happen. So they've sent me some information. I could certainly share that with the group if that's something we want to pursue. I think it's a discussion that the superintendent has to have with probably myself and the school committee and ferret out what does that mean to his staff, because ultimately we all work for the superintendent. So it's kind of, can this be done and not jeopardize the other work that an applicant would be responsible for. But on a $17 million project overall, and what do you think an OPM gets, Lou?
I would think you,
3%?
yeah, around 2%, I think you would get.
Yeah. So, that's substantial money.
but let me just ask a question. Does an OPM require having a PE stamp?
No, it's really, the rec or, the requirements aren't that high. Basically, it's involvement in construction, involvement in new construction, planning, and, project management, without any formal certification, no alphabet soup, nothing, Lee.
There's a guy that's recently retired living in West Greenwich that Kevin knows. You might want to touch base with Kevin Breen. I forget the gentleman's name. He came to one of the meetings last year. He's retired construction and he's interested in being involved to some degree. And I'm not saying, that's if, you don't have anybody else in mind. I believe there's somebody in the local community retired that would possibly fill that bill, but
Yeah.
just a information.
I would much rather hire someone full-time and pay the same money than, get billed hourly by an OPM company.
I'd rather pay our facilities director a stipend since he's gonna be here on the ground anyway.
I don't think Steve really wants that job looking at his facial expressions, but
No, that I'm gonna do it regardless because I'm gonna be worried about it. So I don't care who's looking over their shoulder. I'm gonna be looking over their shoulder.
Nobody tell his wife what the stipend would be if he takes it, though.
You probably just heard that, Jim.
But I think it's, I went on a flyer on that simply because I said it at the school committee meeting, I think this community is, one of their most endearing qualities is their, conservativeness around getting value out of every dollar. And I just feel that it's not a rap against any OPMs out there. I just think that we have expertise in district that can handle it and get better value for it. Anybody can disagree with that. That's fine. I don't take it personally. I just believe that. So,
you got to do what you feel is best in that regard.
I wouldn't take it personally if anybody did.
I think the good news is I think it just demonstrates the district has a good relationship with RIDE. They didn't say no. They said, yeah, go forward. This is how you have to go forward.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
I've never heard that before.
You haven't seen my emails to them, Lou.
So Bob, maybe you and Steve and I can chat tomorrow if that's something that is going to stay on the table. We can have a conversation about that tomorrow.
Sure.
Yep, we'll need to do that.
All right. Well, I wholeheartedly agree. So that sounds good. What's next, Bob?
It was just the projected milestones and the path forward. It's really, the one thing that, I would just say the next thing that the committee should consider is our, our messaging and our marketing of it. I don't know that it needs to be cuckoo crazy. And I know Jim does a great job reaching out to all the organizations, and this year is unlike any others, being, the COVID connection, if you will. So people are dialed in, the parents and the stakeholders are dialed in. So it might be a relief for you, Jim, to send out a positive as opposed to, here's a new regulation about COVID, everybody. I don't know, but we can.
I try to keep my messages positive too, Bob.
I know you do, but this is, I think, really positive, but at any rate, I think that's the next big thing. Refining I've got the notes in there. I just got to we'll follow up with the enabling legislation is be prepared to reach out to the Board of Canvassers and the ballot question. All that stuff is kind of pro forma. We just got to make sure we hit the marks. The thing that's not canned yet is the messaging, the marketing of this, if you will. So.
And I had reached out to you earlier this week, Bob. I was looking for a list of what exactly the projects were included. Because we've talked about them at a high level, but I don't have a list. And I was going to try and create some marketing materials we could use, maybe on social media. Maybe Jim can put them out in an email blast to kind of spread the positive message of what we want to accomplish with this bond.
I have a list in my office, Jeremy. Just stop in tomorrow.
Yeah,
Okay.
I mean, I've got them here, and you can probably see them now. But one of the biggies, I added in here, so we're sitting at 17.4. But if we add in the additional acoustical and COVID for the HVAC, that brings us back up closer to the 18 or the 17.8. But
which is what we asked for, right?
Correct. Yeah, that's the enabling legislation is a 17.8. So.
And I don't think we're going to get away with not doing the COVID stuff.
Or the acoustical. They are really strict now right about the acoustical too.
Yeah, and we're still within what we asked for.
So I'll send those materials out to the committee, and then obviously, Jeremy, your wizardry around the technical side would be great.
I took a screenshot. I'm good.
And Steve, if you need some help, let me know.
Oh, I will. Don't worry. And I'll probably need help, so.
No problem.
Okay. So it doesn't sound like there's anything we actually have to vote on, Bob, or is there something you'd like us to vote on?
You're muted, Bob.
Nope, that was it.
All right. Do we want to pick another date?
I think it might be worth, is there a day that works better for everybody? Because this was Thursday. We were typically meeting on Wednesdays, but
Wednesdays don't work. Town council.
Wednesday's out. Your new role, Lee. So that's,
Yeah, my new role.
I'm teaching one class this semester, Bob, and it's on Wednesdays.
so,
It's like Thursday.
Thursday's fine with me.
yeah.
Or Tuesdays when we don't have school committee.
Will, can you still hear us?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, is there any night that is not good for you? Because I think for this project, we need to have you constantly involved.
Not that I know of at this point, but
Okay,
yeah. No, I just know I teach one class, and that's usually earlier in the week, but I can always modify that if we have a standing meeting.
well, it looks like they're leaning toward Thursdays. Thursdays would be okay?
Yeah, that would probably be okay, because usually it's a Monday, Tuesday that I teach.
Great.
All right. Sounds good.
Good. Thursdays work for me.
You wanna,
Should we pick one?
sure.
Or when should we meet, or when do we need to meet next? So the school committee will meet next week, and
26,
what's
maybe
the next thing we have to do?
I think with the way that you voted, once the school committee approves that, you're gonna let us go. And when next week is that?
It's 2 weeks from this past Tuesday.
So the
January 26th, the school committee meets next.
So we could do the 28th.
No, we can't. That's the joint meeting, Bob.
That's the
Oh,
joint meeting.
Yeah, we're in
And I
budget
think
heaven.
Lewis was saying that because of the way we voted, they're going to be off to the races right after the school committee. So I guess
Yeah.
I'm asking what we have to do next.
Yeah, well, but I'm gonna let you know that we're gonna, under our own risk, we're gonna start tomorrow. So but we expect to get the formal go-ahead within 2 weeks.
Okay.
So what if we have the school committee on the 26th, we report the results of the school committee to Lewis, and we meet the following week on the 4th, because the 28th is the meeting that we have every year with the school committee and the town councils regarding budget. So we can't schedule something on that night.
Works for me.
Fine.
Works for me.
Could you please repeat that date?
4th.
2-4.
And
Thank you.
Bob, don't forget to go to RIDE and make sure that they're ready for emergency, release.
They do have a path for emergency projects. I think that we could qualify. We'll probably need to have some updates on Will's report and state the condition of the systems, and they should let us qualify for that.
Good.
Steve, send Will a picture of that stubby that you had to have mailed out there.
Yeah, I still have pictures on my phone of that, of the geyser.
I'm gonna sign off. Good night. Sorry to be a bull in a china shop, but I think you're on the right path.
Thank you, Lee.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks, Lee. Have a good night.
Yep.
Ellie.
Okay, if that's it, we can adjourn.
Okay.
Good.
Have a good night, everybody.
Good night.
Thank you all.
Thank you all for coming.
Bob, I'll give you a call tomorrow.
All right, thanks for jumping on, Will.